Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know how I'm always talking about how leftists have zero self-awareness, and I mean literally zero self-awareness? Well, I've made the point many times before and I've brought forth many great examples. But friends, this week I think we have a master class. We have some of the greatest examples I have ever seen in terms of left-wing delusion and lack of self-awareness coming from the mainstream media left. You know, it's the same thing that I'm constantly pointing out. I just don't get how they don't see it. I don't get how they don't get it. How they can say this stuff with a straight face. You know, just Joe Biden the other day talking about political violence and not accepting the results of an election, not understanding the complete hypocrisy and irony of that statement, considering he's a member of the Democrat Party. I just don't get where these leftoids get off saying this kind of stuff, completely oblivious to their hypocrisy and the utterly obvious irony. A simple fact of the matter is they probably know that they're being hypocrites, they just don't care, and it results in levels of shamelessness, the likes of which you cannot imagine. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We've got some stuff to get into, a couple viral clips from the weekend. Let me show you what I'm talking about, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so let's first start off with double standards. You know, there's rules for thee, but not for me, and of course that applies to leftist ideology. Within that context, though, of course it's political, but it also exists on a racial level. Depending on your skin color, depending on your racial identity, you're allowed to make certain jokes, you're allowed to say certain things. There's a bunch of leeway and a bunch of things that certain people are allowed to say, and then of course, white people aren't afforded even an inch of slack. They're of course held to a completely different standard. If a majority white country wants to preserve its heritage and protect its borders, that's racist. But of course on the flip side, it's not racist at all, they're just fighting against gentrification. Take a look at this piece from AJ+, which has to be right now one of the dumbest things on the internet, and I don't say that lightly.
This is what some Mexicans are calling modern colonialism. The heavy influx of Americans moving to Mexico City to take advantage of lower living costs. Other locals are calling it gentrification, a plague, or even an invasion.
Wait!
Behind you!
Oh my god!
You're thinking of moving to Mexico City? Wow, one simple recommendation. .com. Gentrification is the name of the game.
Critics say the flood of Americans has caused an increase in the cost of basic necessities for locals. Rent has more than doubled for some. This is not to mention that Mexico City residents already spend an average of 60% of their income on housing.
The same people moving are the same ones who complain when immigrants come to America. And of course, natives are upset, as they should be.
Many Americans moving to Mexico City are working remotely and still getting paid in US dollars. Some locals have benefited from increasing tourism, but for many, that doesn't balance out rising costs and inflation. Mexicans are also fed up with Americans ignoring cultural and social norms. And some complain that in certain places, English is more common than Spanish. Local businesses are being forced to shut down and replaced by cafes and Pilates studios.
People who live in Mexico City and people who work in Mexico City, including myself, we want to get a place, but it's really difficult because the prices are so high, and even with a good salary, it's very difficult. You're still bragging about how cheap it is and how it's not even like a quarter of your rent in LA, and it's messed up, right?
Now, of course, I don't need to explain why this video is completely idiotic, but just listen to the terminology that they used, calling it an invasion. And that right there is the standard. People illegally crossing into the United States of America, that's totally acceptable. Open borders, a leftist will tell you. You're racist if you believe in a sovereign state. White Californians moving to Mexico, well, that's somehow unacceptable and probably racist, according to these leftoids. Illegal immigration that takes jobs away, that enriches cartels, that creates an underclass of illegal migrants and illegal migrant workers who don't even pay taxes or pay into the system, that's totally fine and dandy. California liberals moving to Mexico, totally legally I might add, and bringing American dollars with them, and of course those American dollars being infused into the local Mexican economy, that somehow is a bad thing because as we know from leftist logic, gentrification is evil. It's a one-track mind, folks. What they really mean is everything's evil if it involves white people. White Americans are going to Mexico City legally and spending their money, and somehow that's a bad thing. I mean, just the audacity to hold that stance. I mean, the idea that gentrification's a bad thing in the first place is completely ridiculous. You have rundown neighborhoods and rundown communities, and slowly over time they become more developed and beautiful. Older buildings with history get revitalized and turned into these beautiful pieces of architecture and real estate. Neighborhoods become safe, businesses can operate, and somehow that's a bad thing. I mean, for Pete's sakes, just think about it. Even development is a bad thing as long as it involves white people. But development in other countries, third world countries adopting capitalism and being part of the global markets, a thriving middle class starts to emerge and their cities and towns start to get developed, that's apparently a good thing. But of course, when white people do it, you guys get the gist of it. It's a despicable, bigoted stance to hold. And it always comes from these self-entitled lefties who never worked a damn day in their life and can't seem to appreciate or value the beauty in people working hard and developing neighborhoods. But anyways, let's go back into this whole white people are taking over Mexico City. One individual in that little montage said that, oh, the same people who are moving to Mexico are the same people complaining about immigration in America. Not exactly sure where you got that data from, but just considering the fact that most of the people that are moving to Mexico are from California and are working from home, so they're probably working for tech companies or other professional jobs, I'm gonna go ahead and chalk it up as it's probably liberal elitists that are doing it. And then of course the next point that they brought up, shocked and appalled that people are moving to Mexico City and speaking English. And there's even some districts in the city where people only speak English and restaurant menus are written in English. Oh wow, the friggin' audacity of these people. I mean, are you kidding me? You see what I mean? It's only racist, it's only bigoted if white people do it. That's the standard. Americans complaining that immigrants come over and don't even speak the language or don't even make an effort to speak English, or create divided communities where they speak a completely different language. And if you go in said community, then people barely speak English. That's terrible and deeply bigoted and racist and rooted in American racism. But of course, if Americans move somewhere else and you have an expat community of people that are speaking English and the menu is English and the restaurants and the rent are slightly more expensive, well then it's a siege, it's an invasion. They literally said it's an invasion. When Carrie Lake says that illegal immigration under Joe Biden's presidency is in fact an invasion, she's a terrible alt-right white supremacist. And of course, we understand the standard, or rather the double standard, the total lack of self-awareness, the complete irony, the hypocrisy. And it just baffles the mind that leftoids could post videos like this and not see how bad and dishonest and disingenuous it makes them seem. I mean, who is the person who greenlit this project? But of course, speaking of absolutely cringe videos that the user should have known not to upload because of the clear hypocrisy and irony, this week's winner for the most cringy, totally void of any self-awareness whatsoever video is none other than Taylor Lorenz, who continues to go on her rant, complaining about, I guess, herself?
There's a certain class of media reporters that literally just sits on Twitter all day long and looks for spicy tweets from media people and writes about it. And then they make these manufactured controversies for right-wing lunatics and other media people who are the only people that read this kind of garbage.
Zero self-awareness, folks. I just had to include that video. Of course, if you guys are aware of Taylor Lorenz's history, I'm sure you are. But that's this week's segment of Leftoids Have Zero Self-Awareness. Thanks for watching, and of course, I will see you on the next one.